Ladies and gentlemen, today I have something very different for you. Today, me and Matt MS, another fellow content creator, go through and discuss the struggles and problems that Cheltenham Town have suffered over the last couple of seasons, which has seen them be relegated into League 2. Make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you could try and hit 100 likes on today's video, that would be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new as well. We're now on the road to 9,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed. If you haven't already, with that post notification bell on, it's free to do so, and it does massively help out. Get your thoughts on as well down in the comment section down below. Let me know down below any other content creators that you want to see me collab with. I really enjoyed putting this video together, so hopefully you do all enjoy it as well. Check out Matt's channel. As always, the link to our guests are down in the description down below, and enjoy. So I am now delighted to be joined by Matt from the Matt MS YouTube channel. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm very good, mate. A bit depressed about how my football club is a bit of a circus, and we'll be talking all about that here, but yeah, I've been worse, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not doing too bad. You'll be able to go check out Matt's channel. The link, as always, will be down in the description down below, so make sure to go over and drop him a subscription. So if we take things back to June 2022, where Michael Duff leaves Cheltenham Town to, I think, join Barnsley, and Wade Elliott is appointed as the club's new first-team head coach, I do believe. How were you feeling around this sort of time? Obviously, Michael Duff, big legend at Cheltenham, managed to get you promoted from League 2, winning the title in the COVID season. So how were you feeling around this sort of time?
Well, obviously it was a very sad time. He's done so much for us as a player and as a manager. He's an absolute legend. Honestly, build the statue at this point. Came in, took over a side that was fighting relegation. Obviously won the league with us, like the club's greatest ever achievement, and I won't hear any different. Then obviously got our highest ever finish in League 1 on what was a very small budget, but built a very reliable squad with some fantastic players. You know, he was absolutely incredible for us so to see the back of him was very sad, but it was expected. You know, he'd kind of reached his ceiling with us, and he'd earned a move to a higher club, so you can't really blame him for that. Of course, at the time, I think every Cheltenham fan thought that Wade Elliott would be a logical appointment. You know, he'd been in and around the club for a few years. He'd worked under Michael Duff as a coach at the club. You know, he knew the players, he knew how the club worked, how the team played. He knew it all at the back of his hand, and I think short term it was a very good appointment because we had a similar man to kind of work with, a similar squad, a squad that was relatively unchanged besides a few key players. No drastic change like we've seen in the last couple of seasons. That first season with him, he did fairly well. We'll go on to talk more about Wade Elliott shortly, but yeah, I mean, over that time, I think the whole transition, it was, despite the sadness, I think it was all fairly positive. We were all completely oblivious as to what was to come, unfortunately, with Wade Elliott. Long term, maybe not the greatest appointment. We needed the experience long term, and of course, he doesn't have that at all.
Just touching on that 22-23 season, Wade Elliott's first in charge as Cheltenham manager. He finished 16th in the table, 9 points above the drop zone. Alfie May scores 20 league goals in 37 starts. How were you feeling after that first full season under Wade Elliott, especially coming into the season just gone by? 9 points above the relegation zone. I think from the outside looking in, that's a pretty solid finish for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was very good. Obviously, Alfie May with yet another amazing season. You know, several great seasons in a row. The amount of goals he scored for us was pivotal. He was kind of that final piece in the jigsaw puzzle of what was a very good team, in all fairness. You know, there's no iron team, and he was that kind of that little aspect that we needed, and when we eventually lost that, we realised, but he was incredible. You can't complain when a side like side like us with a very small budget, a small fan base, a small club that really is a League 2 or non-league club, to be doing well in League 1, regardless of whether it's 9 points clear of the drop, 1 point clear of the drop. You know, top half, it's all relative, but at the same time, it all means the same thing. If you're maintaining that football at that level, it's massive for the club. And yeah, the mood was just on another level at that point in time.
And just touching on Alfie May, obviously we mentioned him quite a lot so far in today's video. On the 7th of July 2023, it was confirmed that he joined league rivals. I say league rivals, you can't really compete financially
no.
with Charlton Athletic, but he joins them for £250,000, and for the amount of goals that he'd scored at League 2 and especially League 1 level, to only get £250,000 for him must have been a massive blow, considering some of the money that has been spent these days. And obviously he's had an incredible season with Charlton. I think I'm right in saying he won the League 1 Golden Boot. So how were you feeling after that move, and especially with the price tag as well?
Oh man, it was a huge kick in the teeth. We have to talk about the price tag, unfortunately. Of course, 250 grand for a player of his calibre is just absolutely insane, regardless of the circumstances. Of course, we did know that There was offers coming in for him in January. Championship clubs, high-end League One clubs. He was a man that was being headhunted. He was highly sought after in January. We couldn't afford to lose him. We didn't lose him, but of course, really, we had to let him go, to let him get that move that he deserved to a bigger and better club in the summer. I think that pressure to let him go and to not cause a scene was the driving factor. They also, the board also mentioned his age. I don't care if he's 30, 31, I don't care if he's in his 40s. He was in the prime of his career. He still is now. He's proved that in his first season at Charlton. He's proven that, it doesn't matter what age you are, your peak of your career can happen whenever. 3 extremely successful seasons in a row now for him. He's just proven that price tag was absolutely farcical. He still had a year left on his contract with us. We had the option to trigger a further year on top of that year that he had left, and that was in our hands. So if he didn't want to leave, and we didn't want to let him leave, we could have easily had him for another 2 years, which it's mind-boggling. I know we had to let him go in a sense, but 250,000 in 2023's market, it is an absolute embarrassment, and says a lot about what we are like as a club. What was even worse was the fact that Doncaster got a 20% sell-on clause, so we only got 200 of that. I mean, come on, there's nothing really more that needs to be said on it. It was a complete embarrassment. I know we had to let him go, but that price is just farcical.
Yeah, and away from Alfie, mate, what was some of the other business that he did in the summer in terms of incomings, outgoings? Were there any other major business, would you say?
I mean, when's there not? I would love to pick out individual bits of business, but to be honest, when over the last 2 years we've had, or over the last 2 summers, 3 summers even, we've had such big overhauls, and it seems to be getting worse every summer. Obviously, we'll talk about this summer so far. It's already been worse than that summer at that time. You can't lose key players and not replace key loanees like we did and expect to do well last season. We lost players, we simply didn't replace them well enough. And I think it was not necessarily so much about what we lost, it was about how we replaced it, and we didn't do that well at all, and I'm sure that'll be a later question. Moving on then to the start of the 23-24 campaign, I think it's fair to say you started out fairly poorly. Your first point of the season came on the 19th of August with a 0-0 draw away at Portsmouth, but then after 8 games, Wade Elliott gets the sack on the 20th of September, just 1 point picked up in them opening 8 games. You scored 0 goals. I'm sure it's probably a decision that you definitely agreed with, to part company with Wade Elliott.
Oh, it was long overdue, if I'm honest. The football was horrendous. I think the one thing that I always felt bad for Wade with was the summer of transition that he had with backroom staff. Of course, I mean, everyone and their nan seemed to go to Shrewsbury last summer. We lost Mickey Moore, we lost Tom Ware, we lost several backroom staff that were key to the club's operations. It restricted how long the window we had to recruit players. It basically dashed all the plans of bringing in certain players out the window. It changed so much. So I think he was very hard done by with that. But, when you've got our manager who's there, who's trying to maintain another season in League One after what was a fairly solid campaign the year before, and his first season in full management, it was a pathetic attempt by himself. The football was horrendous. When you get 5 or 6 games in and you haven't scored a goal, there are serious questions already being asked. Even more so when the football does not change at all after those. The recruitment admittedly wasn't all down to him. A lot of it was down to Russell Milton and co with the head of recruitment roles and stuff like that. I don't even want to have to start on talking about him, but the recruitment was not good enough. It was a welcome decision for sure. We needed an experienced head. He didn't offer that, like I said earlier. Long term, it was a horrendous appointment, and it proved at the start of last season, and that's why ultimately we had a very, very disappointing campaign over the course of the 46 games, but the damage was done in the first 8 that he was there. To be honest, it was an absolute embarrassment, and to say that you get your first point before you get your first goal within 8 games is just, I mean, you don't even need to say anything, the stats speak for themselves. It was shocking.
And then 9 days later, Darrell Clarke was appointed as your new manager, but he didn't officially take over until October the 2nd. Looking back at that time, how did you feel about the appointment? And obviously about 14 points adrift at this moment in time. How are you feeling? Are you assuming you're probably already down and it's just about a bit of pride at that point? And obviously the appointment of Darryl Clark as well.
Oh, we all thought the damage was done. I don't think we ever thought that it was realistic to stay up. We thought, at least we've got a new manager in quickly. We've got a good quality manager in, one that the fans wanted. I mean, there was always hope in the back of our minds that he could pull off the impossible. With the first few games, when he was starting to pick up the first few wins and we were playing better football, we were scoring goals. I mean, scoring the goal was the first objective. Sounds silly when a manager comes in, but to score a goal so far, a quarter of the way into the season, more than that, was the first objective, says a lot. But he did that. The belief came back. I don't think the belief of staying up was necessarily there when he came in, but it was after, he showcased what he could do with this squad on a man management level. Getting them back into a positive mindset was the main thing. He showed that he could do that, and then the belief started to come back. It was a fantastic appointment, but of course, we got hit by some poor refereeing decisions throughout the season. We got hit with several injuries, and then obviously we'll get onto the recruitment, but we didn't recruit well enough in January again, and it was just unfortunate that he couldn't keep us up, because I think I would have loved for him, obviously his first season back into management after the horrendous stuff that he had to go through off the pitch. It would have been amazing, but it was an improvement, and we were glad of that, and at least we put up a fight, because if we'd kept Wade, that fight would have never been there.
Yeah, so you score your first goal on the 7th of October, I do believe, in a 1-1 draw at home to Derby County, that being on game week 12. You then score 6 goals and pick up 7 points in 5 matches, and Darryl Clark was nominated for Manager of the Month. And after 15 games, you found yourselves only 6 points from safety. Obviously, you've had a great upturn in form at this moment in time. When you're only 6 points away from safety with 31 games still to play, is the feeling back that you could actually do it? You could achieve the impossible?
I mean, with the momentum we had, yes. I'd be lying if I said no. The momentum was the main factor. You can start picking up results all you want, but if the consistency isn't there, then it's not gonna mean anything. Our form in comparison to the teams above us was significantly better at that point in time. We were picking up results against teams around us. We were putting in good performances against teams at the higher end of the table. That went on to happen throughout the whole of the season. We took points off the bigger teams. A few, we still had the occasional trip up against teams around us when it really mattered. But at that specific point in time, like you mentioned, it was, it was more disbelief that we could actually do it as opposed to belief, to be fair. But the passion was back. The ground felt alive again on a match day. It felt like it was always worth travelling to all the away games and whatever to back the team and to try and push us across the line to do the impossible. But that's all a credit to Darryl Clark and the assets that he brought in with like I say, his man management. I think that was the main thing, to pick the players off of basically the floor to bring them back to the mentality that should be in a League One squad hoping to stay up. And it was such a close run thing in the end, but yeah, the belief was well and truly back, and the Manager of the Month nomination was deserved, and it's a credit to him to have even got us out the hole that we were in, to be honest.
And then just one league win in November kept the gap at 6 points, with the January transfer window not too far away. By the start of January, Cheltenham were off the bottom and found themselves in 22nd, just 4 points from safety. Going into January, could you just summarise what type of business that you did? It looked like you brought in a lot of experience and a couple of the loanees went back, but how did you feel about the business that you did do in January?
I'm pretty sure it was all of the loanees went back, actually. I don't think there was I'm trying to think off the top of my head if any of the loanees stayed. I don't think they did. So that said a lot about what sort of team that Darryl Clark was trying to build, and how he what those loanees held in his eyes. The recruitment was interesting. I mean, I think the pinnacle of it was bringing in Joe Nuttall. I think that pretty much summed up the window. Of course, on loan from Oldham, a player who wasn't exactly making frequent appearances for them. I would love to say the business was good. A lot of the players did turn out to have good effect to us, including Joe Nuttall, actually. In the last few games, he was excellent for us. Matty Taylor was a great signing, I will give him that. But Liam Kinsella, bringing in someone like him, he was a good signing, but again, we already had similar assets to himself. We already had Tom Pat. They're basically the same player. I don't think we brought in enough of what we need. We didn't really bring in, we brought in Josh Harrop, an attacking midfielder who, okay, he does hold those creative assets, but he hasn't shown it pretty much since the youth level at United. A couple okay games when he was at Preston and teams like that, but a player, and you know, another player who's injury prone. He had a couple of niggles while he was here. He wasn't exactly highly in favour. I think the recruitment needed to be better, and it wasn't. And like I say, a few players did have positive impacts, but it just wasn't enough.
And in terms of on the pitch, January was actually quite a poor month with only 1 win and then the gap extending itself to 8 points, and I can only assume at that point that spirits must have been lower than ever. But the final few months of the season, it was so much drama and chaos, and the way that it ended as well. February was excellent though, it salvaged a little bit of life and the Robins climbed to 21st in the table and were only 2 points from safety with 2 games in hand on 20th place Charlton Athletic at that time. And by the start of April, survival was in Cheltenham's hands. They were 2 points from safety with 2 games in hand on 20th place Burton. By the start of April, you must be feeling, surely we can actually do this. We can achieve the unthinkable.
Yeah, it was all there. We knew it was in our hands, but you know, you ask any Cheltenham fan, when you're in that position, and we've been in that position many a time, when you're in that position, you almost think it's guaranteed not to happen, because we just, whenever it's in our hands, we don't like it being in our hands. If it's in our hands, we will do everything in our power to not make it in our hands. You mentioned February. I do just want to touch on that. That was an unbelievable month. You know, we won 3 in a row at one stage. We picked up 10 points from a possible 12. You know, picking up wins against the likes of Blackpool, that was something else. It was a great month, and that put us in good stead, like you say, for April, which was then, unfortunately, a horrendous month it turned out to be, and we just did not take our chances well at all. I think the pinnacle of that was losing at home to Carlisle, an already relegated side. They'd already been relegated the weekend before. In true Cheltenham fashion, losing to a team who really have nothing to play for, when if we won that game, we would have probably stayed up. I'll genuinely happily put my neck on the line and say that. I think if we would have won that game as opposed to putting out a poor performance and losing, those 3 points would have been the difference between us staying up and Burton going down potentially. But listen, that's football. Cheltenham Town will unfortunately never change, and yeah, the belief was there, but we knew deep down that it was always going to be shattered in true Cheltenham Town fashion.
Just summarising April then, it was obviously a massive failure with 4 losses on the bounce, including a dismal defeat at home to bottom of the table Carlisle United, despite a big win away from home against Burton in a massive relegation 6-pointer, and an even bigger win at home to Peterborough. Heading into the final day of the season, Cheltenham had to win and Burton had to draw or lose for the Robins to survive. The Brewers were actually pumped 3-0 away at already relegated Fleetwood Town, but Darryl Clark's side was sucker punched to 90th minute defeat away at Stevenage and was subsequently relegated back to League 2. I think you've got to give Cheltenham and everybody around the football club a massive amount of credit for being in that position in the first place, but you look back to them first 8 games, your first goal only coming on game week 12, you know, to actually be in that position is a massive credit to Darryl Clark, and unfortunately in the end it just wasn't quite enough. How were you feeling on that final day when the full-time whistle went away at Stevenage?
I honestly think, I still haven't decided if it is or not, but that felt like one of the most painful moments I've had in football. I've been watching football my whole life, and I don't think anything came close to that. You know, with the game being 0-0 at Stevenage, hearing that Burton had gone 2-0 down, you know, we were convinced. We thought, oh my God. Like, it was, I just remember standing there, like, I was refusing to get excited, but I was just like, oh my goodness, we are actually going to do this. We went 1-0 down, came out the second half, we were the better side, we got a goal fairly early on in the second half, and yeah, it was just one of them things. Football's cruel. I think at the end of the day, you know, like you say, it's a credit to Darryl Clark and all involved that we even got that close. We took it to the last day, but we still bottled it. You know, we got ourselves that close. Like you say, we had 2 games in hand earlier on in the season, 2 points off. That we had so many chances to get out of the relegation zone. We didn't, and we bottled it. We bottled it at the end of the day. You know, with that equaliser hitting the back of the net, we had several chances just after that. We had a 1-on-1 which was put straight at the keeper, went out for a corner. It was painful, but we bottled it, and that was what hurt more. Like I say, football's a cool sport, and hopefully we can try and salvage something from the depths and rebuild next season, and just hopefully maintain ourselves as a Football League club, because I think that's the main worry after after that sucker punch of a relegation.
Moving on then ahead into next season, on May 22nd, Cheltenham confirmed the departure of 3 key players, with top scorer Liam Serkin and club captain Sean Long joining fierce rivals Forest Green Rovers, and goalkeeper Luke Southwood also rejecting a new contract. Obviously, 2 of your most important players going to your rivals who were actually in the division below must have been a massive blow for you. I think you probably expected Luke Southwood to move on. I think he is a League One standard goalkeeper, but obviously you must have been gutted with that news.
The Serkin and Long one does my head in. With Serkin, I can understand him going to Forest Green in a way. I still don't respect him for it. Obviously, I just want to say they were both unreal for us. You know, massive part in the club's history, and I'll forever be grateful to them for that. Legends of the club, and they always will be. But as far as I'm concerned, that was all chucked away by at least one of them. I think Serkin, you know, he's coming to the end of his career. He wants a payday. I get that. And I can't blame him for that. The Sean Long one really hurt. You know, he's gone from being captain here for the past few years, ever since Tozer left, to Wrexham. Offered a new contract, held in high esteem here, and to go when, you know, he's 29 for goodness sake. Admittedly, he is 30 in about 10 days, I believe. If that doesn't say a lot about where we're at as a club and how appealing we are to players right now, I don't know what does. You know, if you're a club captain somewhere, the fans are so fond of you, you've got a reputation, you've built up relations around the club, you love the club, you've been here for so long. If he's feeling the need to move on from that, to move down a league simply to get a better contract when the football is you know, going to be worse, the crowds are going to be worse, this, that and the other, I just think it's hysterical. Obviously, I'm very annoyed at Sean Long for it, but I'm also annoyed at us, because it does, like I say a lot about where we're at as a club. Touching on Luke Southwood, he was always going to leave. Yeah, he's a fantastic keeper. I won't exactly say he's perfect. He is prone to a mistake every now and again, but hopefully he doesn't see this and gives me, you know, a slap on the wrist. But no, he'll get a good move next season, no doubt, and he'll keep himself in League One. But it just makes our rebuild even harder, doesn't it? You know, Loney's leaving. We've already had offers come in for players. There's almost certainly players that are contracted that haven't had offers yet that will. The squad is in massive jeopardy, and I honestly don't know how we rebuild to stay in the Football League next year, to be honest.
And obviously the bad news really continued with the day after the club announcing Darryl Clark leaving the football club to join League One side Barnsley. Is this something that you expected? Did you think he'd stay on and try and rebuild? Obviously he'd done an incredible job in the previous season. I assume you got some sort of compensation for that, with him still being contracted until the end of the upcoming season. But is that a move you expected to see, and how do you feel about that?
As time went on, I was convinced he was going to stay. I think maybe one of the factors that I probably read too much into was Tom Pett triggering another year on his contract. You know, pretty much as soon as the season ended, he signed on for another year, which he only really came in the first place because Darryl Clark was here. He was the reason that he joined us, and I thought, oh, you know what, maybe, you know, Tom Pett probably could get a high-end League 2 move maybe, as opposed to staying on with us. But that's maybe why I thought so early on that could be a factor as to why Darryl Clark stays. When you have a League One club that is competing to stay up, competing to go up, you're always going to expect him to leave. But when I woke up to the news that he was going, it was a sense of shock. I'd kind of convinced myself he was staying, but I don't blame him for leaving. You know, if that offer's on the table, then there's nothing we can do about it. Yeah, there's no blame on the board on that part. There's no blame on our side of things. Barnsley came in, you can't blame him for it, you can't blame Barnsley for it. It's just unfortunate on top of all the other issues we have.
And then the day after that, there was more breaking news coming from the club appointing former manager Gary Johnson as director of football. How do you feel about that appointment? Obviously done quite well with you in the National League and then fell out with the fan base. How do you feel about that appointment?
Well, I mean, like you say, he was, as a manager, he obviously got relegated with us to non-league, did amazing to bounce back. First time I've asked him win the league. I must admit the recruitment that season was very good. We built a very good squad for that level, bringing in the likes of Dan Holman. The list goes on. That was a great season, a season that will live long in the memory for me, and I'll forever thank Gary Johnson for that. The next season, the rebuild for League 2 was not sufficient, hence why we only just about stayed up by the skin of our teeth. That was when things started to go downhill. The football was horrendous. I think that season we deserved to go down, if I'm honest, from what I remember. If Hartlepool was slightly more on their toes at times, if they'd have beaten us on the final day, a lot of little things that came into it throughout the season, but we stayed up by the skin of our teeth in comparison to them. and then the next season, of course, losing our first 4 games. He burnt bridges with the fan base. The lack of respect was unbelievable. I know, there's still a small portion of our fan base who still does love him for what he did in the National League and still love him in general just because of that. I'll always respect him for that National League season, but when you're burning bridges with the fans and, driving the club towards non-league football again, there's no coming back from that. It ended bitterly with us. He then has gone on to jobs with the likes of Torquay, got them relegated to National League South and almost saw another relegation from National League South. That ended bitterly as well. Everywhere he's gone has ended toxically, and now we've brought him in to be our director of football. It is completely embarrassing. It epitomises our board. It says a lot about where we are right now. It's a disgrace, in my opinion, but I wish him the best, and I hope he can turn around our fortunes one way or the other.
And obviously we have already mentioned that a couple of players have already moved on. We expect further players to move on. Is there any players who are currently contracted for next season who you think the new manager needs to build his side around and they need to stay with Cheltenham?
I would love to say we need to keep Elliot Bonds and Lewis Freeston. I think they are... they're both prone to their off games, but they're absolutely monumental at times. Lewis Freeston, I know we've already had offers for. In all fairness, David Bloxham's come out and said, we're waiting until we appoint the new manager, and then we can consult with him and see if we do want to in fact keep Lewis or drive up a higher price, whatever it may be. I'm glad that we're giving the new manager the option of that. I'm almost certain that Elliot Bonds will have offers come in for him. Since his loan with us, obviously he finished his loan early due to injury. We then signed him on a permanent the window after, and since he's been with us on a permanent after joining from Hull, he's been nothing short of excellent. He's gone from strength to strength since he went out on loan to Kidderminster, did well there, came back and was class. He's gone from a boy to a man, and it would be a massive loss to lose him. I don't think there's anyone you build the team around, really, but there is certainly figures such as them two that we just have to keep if we want any chance of doing alright next year.
And just to end on then, finally, at the time of recording, no manager has been officially announced at the club. When Darryl Clark decided to move on, was there any immediate names which stuck out to you? It's heavily rumoured that it will be Michael Flynn taking over, but firstly, was there any other managers that you were hoping for, and if it is to be Michael Flynn, what do you think about that as an appointment?
Immediately as Darryl Clark left, I didn't really have anyone that came into mind other than Michael Flynn. He's been a name that's been partially linked with us before, but we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. I knew that it was going to be nowhere near the level of appointment that Darryl Clark was when he came in. I think Michael Flynn's a good option. I do like him as a manager. Obviously, he had a poor job at Swindon, but admittedly for the last few years, Swindon have not exactly been in the greatest of positions with several ownership problems, etc. So, you take their last 20 years as a pinch of salt from that, because that they are a bit up and down. Obviously, they had a few good years getting promoted to League One, etc. But listen, I do think he's the best option we've got. Hopefully, he can turn around our fortunes and bring in a few good players. But again, mate, we've got a big transfer window coming up. That's going to be the deciding factor, and we'll just have to wait and see come 12 months time.
And heading into next season as well, one final thing that I do want to ask, in terms of expectation, obviously it will depend on who your manager is, what type of players you sign, but what are you hoping for a type of finish next season for Cheltenham?
The hopes are on the floor, to be honest. The only overriding hope is just keep us in the league. I think it was always, even with Darryl Clark here, regardless of what players we kept hold of, I always thought, maybe try and aim for a lower mid-table finish. Just don't get near that relegation zone. Now for me, it's stay up any way possible. It's going to be a bum fight. It's going to be tight. I sat down and spoke on TikTok about my early relegation candidates. There's 3 or 4 for me. We're a strong one in that. We've got a long way to go this summer to try and get ourselves out of that mess, but even still, that rebuild could consequently be poor. We'll only see come opening day. If the football's poor, it says a lot, and by then it's too little too late. So we have to get every decision right if we do want to achieve maintaining that Football League status, but it's bleak at the moment, and unfortunately that's what we're looking at, mate.
Well, we'll leave it there then for today's video. Matt, thank you very much for your time. Make sure to go check out his channel. The link will be down in the description down below. Well, there we have it then, something very different for today's video. I really do hope you have enjoyed watching. If you have, please make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you could try and hit 100 likes. As I said at the start of today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new as well. We're on the road to 9,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed if you haven't already, with that post notification bell on. It's free to do so, and it does massively help out. Get your thoughts in as well down in the comment section down below on today's video. What did you like? What did you dislike? All that sort of stuff. I tried something very different with the editing style. Thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you very soon for another one. Peace.